introduce you to some different creative careers that are out there. I'm sure you've heard of graphic design, fashion designer, but I'm going to share with you some others. And then, of course, we're going to explore a little bit more about the university. But we have a really cool program that lets you take some free classes right now as a high school student. So I'll talk about that as well. There's going to be a QR code throughout my presentation. So just keep in mind, if at any point you want some more information, you're just going to scan my QR code, fill it out. Or if you forgot to fill in today, if you have one of these on your table, it's the same thing as the QR code. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so some of you might think you have to be an amazing artist like right now to even pursue a creative career. And you really do have to think again. That's because art can be learned, believe it or not, it's really just putting in the time. So art school is a great way for you to get that skill set that you need, but also the experience in going through all of those processes that your industries do. So this is a quick look at all of the different areas of study that you could potentially earn at the university. But I didn't write all 140 degrees on here, so just keep that in mind. So for example, you can get a 2D animation degree, and 2D is what we see a lot overseas. There is a much bigger demand here in the United States for 3D animation. You can also get a stop motion degree. So have you ever seen Coraline? Something like that, it's going to be stop motion. And then keep in mind, you can kind of tell, these are red here. We have free classes, and those are within the areas. I'll show you a list of all the classes at the end as well. So some of you, most of you are thinking about your futures in here. You're taking that step. But some of you might not know what you want to do, and that's okay. I was actually one of those students. But what I can share with you from my experience is just start trying out a bunch of different stuff, because you never know what's going to stick with you. Alright, so a great place to start when it comes to knowing what you want to do for a career is just reflect a little bit and know what you like to do. So what is it that brings you joy? What is it that you like to do in your free time? Do you like to draw? Do you like to paint? Whether that's with a paintbrush, a spray can, acrylic. And I know some of you watch TV and film. Alright, so think about the Avengers, the Mandalorian, pretty much any Marvel movie. Those have a ton of VFX, or what they call visual effects. So that's using things like computer-generated images and green screens, and even a career as a matte painter. So a matte painter comes in after production, and they make a perfect background, a perfect sunset, and they add and just touch up the colors within the animation or the movie. Think about, Pixar movies like Soul and Luca. Those are all animated in 3D. So everything that you see on the screen here, this is work from our animation and visual effects students. And then keep in mind when you're watching anything at home, those animations have gone through the hands of multiple artists to finally get to that final product.
Ooh, I like that one. I like that one.
Alright. So maybe you like to take photos. So is your camera roll always full? Are you a gamer? Do you like fashion? Maybe even like accessory design. I don't know about you, but I always have to walk by a building and I always catch myself just stopping and staring at it because I am interested in architecture, so you might. Maybe interior design fascinates you. And I live in the valley as well, so there is a lot of empty spaces and waterways. You can learn to design those outdoor spaces like parks in a landscape architecture department. Do you like filming? Do you call yourself a storyteller? And you create characters, alternate worlds. And then music. I don't know about you, but if you've ever played a game with no sound effects or watched a movie without a soundtrack, it's just not the same. So there is such a power when it comes to music. And you can turn all of those interests into careers. Alright, so this is our pre-college program. So whenever I talk about this just means we have tuition-free classes that you can take. It's all year round, so you can do it in the fall, spring, and summer, and the only requirement is that you're in high school. So that's it. And it will act as a scholarship program. So I'll mention that in the end as well, but you can earn scholarship money by completing one of these classes. But let's talk about art school. So when you think about art school, what do you think of? Most people already have like an idea in their minds. So when I think of art, I think of like 9th grade art class. So of course, art is all about like painting and sculpting and drawing, but there's just so much more real world application out there. When it comes to drawing, this is actually the visual language that artists use to communicate their ideas. So everyone's gonna learn how to draw at the university. Don't let that scare you from a certain degree, because everyone draws a little different. An animator is gonna draw even slightly different than a game designer. A fashion designer is going to draw completely different than an architect. So there's different styles of drawing. And I think we can all agree that society has grown a lot more technologically advanced these past few years. So with that rise and that demand for technologies, you need artists who create for those devices. So that's things like augmented reality, VR, all that has to be designed by an artist. But this is music and sound design. So this, what you're going to be hearing, was created by our students. And that's because art's not just visual. That you need to work with entertainment. So that's to work with animators and game designers and movie makers. So yeah, you're going to get the skills to be in a booth with like an artist, but that is not the focus of the program. Imagine, think about the sound of the lightsaber from Star Wars. That did not exist naturally. Some artists had to create that sound. So if I gave you a room full of junk and I said, make that sound, like what would you use? And that is actually the job of a Foley artist, is to capture and create those sounds. So we've been around since 1929 in San Francisco, it's been a while. And we have 40 buildings. So there's housing if you want to live there as well, whether you're like a first-time freshman or a transfer student, we have appropriate housing. So these are some of our professors, and arguably my favorite part about the entire university. They have a lot of experience that they're willing to share. So for example, if you're interested in fashion, you'd be learning from this man here who has worked with like Da Vinci, Versace, Alexander McQueen, pretty much doing every aspect of fashion. If there's anybody who wants to design cars, you learn from this man here. He's actually created the original Mazda Miata he's worked with there. And then Catherine Tate from our animation school, I mean, she's done the visual effects for like Star Wars. Her IMDb list is insane. So she has some really great knowledge. So if clay's your medium, you might love the feeling of it, the smell of clay. There are jobs out there. And one of them is a clay modeler, and you're typically hired by a car company. And you bring their two-dimensional concepts to life using clay. So it ends up being like a 3-foot vehicle, and you do utilize 3D printers, but that's a necessary step in the entire process of creating a new concept car. So again, you can be a clay modeler. You could create what is called maquettes within animation, because those are utilized for lighting purposes. We do have online education, if that's what you're interested in. You can earn like any degree online from our university, except acting and auto restoration. You have to be in the San Francisco floor. We have a really diverse student body. We have students from over 115 different countries right now at the Academy of Art. but San Francisco's home. And I'm sure most of you have adventured in the city at least once. It's a very creative city, and a lot of industries call it home. So whether you're into games or animations, fashion, lots of industries are looking to hire graduates. Okay, so let's see. This is a look at some of the companies that have actually hired our students and alumni. If you're into games, we have Riot and Blizzard. They actually come into the university throughout the year and they will review portfolios of our students, and then they do host special classes as well. So that's a great aspect. Let's see, if you're into designing shoes, a lot of our alumni go on to work for Nike, Under Armour, Adidas. What I read last week, if there's any basketball fans in here, Giannis, who was the former MVP, our student is actually designing his shoe for Nike this year that'll drop. So that's quite impressive. He's still a student. Alright, let's see. So take a look here, just glimpse at these, ask yourself, would you call that art? Like, in your opinion, is that art? Cool, so yes, all of these up here represent a different type of art form. I enjoy this one because this is a career as a visual merchandiser. So if you're into fashion and design, you would be creating eye-catching spaces. That's the whole goal. So if I'm like a potential customer, you want me to stop and stare at your wall. So you will create storefront windows. You would design the layout of the store and any type of signage as well. So again, that's a visual merchandiser. If you walk out of your house, you're going to see art somewhere. Guaranteed. I mean, there's tons of graphic design on your phone, first of all. And then we wear it every day. So it's our clothes. It is our jewelry. We do have a really small, very unique metal arts program. So if anybody wants to be a metal smith, I've seen some really cool pieces come out of that program. I like to play chess, so they made the entire chessboard and all the pieces out of metals. So if you've ever considered a career in fashion, there's a bunch of routes you can take. We have 14 different degrees, anything from marketing for fashion to design and styling. Every year we have a fashion runway event for our students. So if you're into design for fashion, you'll work really hard to finally get your designs displayed on that runway that we hold every year. It's been in New York, it's typically in San Francisco, but we invite professionals to come sit front row and see your designs. So if you're interested in like fashion design, I would check out the YouTube channel we have. You'll actually be able to follow students' progress and how they get to that final runway. Alright, so I do want to show you all of the 13 or 14 different degrees in fashion. They're all up there for you. I'm going to show you a few of them. Alright, so here are some of those careers. You can go on to become a fashion designer, of course. You could be a design director. You're going to oversee different types of trends and fabrics and colors. If you're into fashion design, you're going to learn things like knitwear, how to silk screen print, different types of crochet. There's fashion journalism, so if you want to quickly write and produce contents for different types of blogs and socials, magazines. Our students go to New York Fashion Week where they actually practice those live journalistic skills. All right, another one of the careers within fashion is going to be a textile designer. This is a student setup during quarantine. They made it happen, but they are creating different types of fabrics and prints here. So you know things like color, design, but you also have to know like fabrics, different types of construction techniques. Because once you create the textile, it goes on and gets turned into goods, right? So like pillows, pillows, you've got different types of bedding products, and of course it gets turned into clothing. If you're into the world of theater and film, know that you can work closely with them as a costume designer. So this is a very rigorous sewing program. You'll also learn things like special effects makeup, styling techniques, and the whole goal is to prepare you to work within film and theater. And because we do have such a large acting program at the university, you're always creating these pieces. All right, so another career obviously is going to be a stylist. So if you could see yourself on sets giving different types of direction for like a fashion photo shoot, that's what this program is. So you're going to learn to style clothing but also products. If you're into digital design, this is going to be graphic design. So you're going to learn things like creating packaging here, different types of logos. And as a graphic designer, your projects are seen numerous places. They could be on physical environments, so like bus stops, trains. Of course, you see graphic design on your phones as well. This is what we call experience design. And then you learn to create motion graphic work. So here's an example of student motion graphics. Chances are you're going to work closely with an advertiser, and we do have an advertising agency on campus that is student run. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite ads. Yes, it is Pokemon. But this took home like a national level award from our students, and so here is that ad.
Many games sank into obscurity, but Pokemon stood the test of time. With support from fans around the world, it evolved from an 8-bit game into the most successful media franchise. We want to thank the fans with a dedicated set of Twitter emojis, the 8-bit Pokemons. When they tweet hashtag Pokemon, a Pokeball emoji will appear. They can also generate Pokemon emojis by adding its unique Pokedex number.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
Our PR strategy leverages street artists and social media influencers. Street artists will paint Pokemons in hidden locations, encouraging the pixel art community to locate them beyond digital space. On National Video Games Day, a social media influencers will challenge their followers to tweet their favorite Pokemon. It will create buzzes among the Pokemon fans and the retro gaming community. Because love them, hate them, you gotta tweet them all.
Pikachu?
Right. So industrial design. You might be like, well, what is that? Industrial design encompasses all of these aspects. So you could be a transportation designer, design toys. I heard Toys R Us is making a comeback. You got product design and furniture. So the goal to be a successful industrial designer is to think of something that annoys you in society and then produce a product that helps fix that or change it. So for example, this student was like, hey, it is difficult to cut if you're visually impaired. So they created this device that would allow for visually impaired to cut a lot safer. Our students in for the past like 8 years, they've worked with NASA. They designed different devices. So when you go to space, there's potentially a lot of problems. So I can think of two. It's like, you might get lonely, and where's my food coming from? So the students were like, hey, this is going to act as like a companion, and it'll teach them how to grow food within that environment in space. Now, if you are interested in footwear, know that your athletic shoes, those have been designed with function in mind. It's all to improve your athletics, not really slow you down. So this is one of our former students and athletes. He's currently a footwear designer for Adidas. And these are some of his projects. But he did the Freak Cleat for Patrick Mahomes. He's also done things for Chris Bryant and other MLB teams. So if you're interested in cars, know that all the ones that you see on the road, they are created by artists. And those artists have studied things like digital drawing and then 3D modeling. So 3D modeling is a really solid skill to have for a lot of different industries. Like if you want to go into game development or animation, you're also going to learn about 3D modeling. We do have companies come in and give our students opportunities to work for them. So this past year, BMW just said, hey, come up with a cool concept. So that's what our students did. They started off really simple with their details, and then they got to this final digital rendering here, and this was done for BMW. They've done things for like Audi as well. This is an example of like a 3D modeled vehicle just rotating. And then, oh, I saw a crazy car. It was a big rig, and they designed it for Volvo, and they said it could drive itself while the driver was actually sleeping in the back, and then they could stay on route and make their time. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Okay, so here is, if you've ever seen a Tesla, I saw one not too long ago, and there's just so much technology on that dashboard. These interactive elements are starting to get introduced into vehicles more and more. If you want to design things like this, pretty much looks like an iPad, you would be hired as what is called a user interface or user experience designer, and not just UI or UX. And that is within the world of tech. So there you'll see a lot of UI jobs, a lot of UX jobs out there. And as a UI or UX designer, your goal is to make the interface delightful. So if you've ever used like a Netflix platform that just had some bugs and it didn't work properly, that steers you away from using it more and more. So again, that's why it's all about making things delightful for the user. That's what keeps the user a user. This is Dan Cox. He's worked on Avatar, Avengers. He does a lot of the VFX. So he comes in and actually does a lot of speaking and just talks about how he got into the industry. But we do that for all of our degree programs too. We're always bringing in guest speakers. And then what's cool about the university, you have all the top equipment you can imagine there, all the technology. So if you're into things like film or photography, you'd be utilizing equipment like this. Fashion photographers, that's kind of a natural thing for our students, or commercial photography. So that's taking images of different types of products. I mean, we even have like a drone certification program that will teach you how to navigate and how to capture content. All right, so keep in mind a lot of these art forms are like a team environment. You're going to be working with a lot of different artists. And then there's some that are just going to be a lot more independent, like sculpting or drawing. A lot of the time that's just you. So this is a really cool program. It's called Studio X. And what it is, it's just a production style environment. So that means these are real projects that were presented to our students to work on. So this is going to be a look at some of their contributions and how they went about creating it. So if you've ever seen like Strawberry Mansion or Beast of the Southern Wilds, you might recognize it. Out there. Okay, so you could be a concept artist and you are drawing first everything that you see. So that's like props, environments, characters. You're giving them their personality and their overall look and feel of the game or of the animation. So in game development, you need concept artists as well. So that's the similarity there. But within animation, you need a 3D modeler. That's what you're hired for, is to actually take that concept and build it in the computer. There's careers for those that what is called rigging. And that is you basically putting sensors all over the body, and then that allows the next person, which is the animator, to come in and actually take those little sensors and make the character have movements. So this is what they call a pipeline process, because there's just so many artists that are involved in creating animations. And then you have a job, which is called a compositor. So sometimes students are like, well, I want to work in animation, but I'm not the best artist, like I don't draw really well. And I'm like, well, there's a job that is really just taking every artist's elements that they created, and then you pile it all together. And again, that's a compositor. And then you need like communication directors in these situations as well. So you could really be just good at managing a team and still be involved in this world. So I do recommend checking out our spring show. This is a really cool event that we have every year for our students. And it's just the showcase. So you'll see things like commercial arts to performance art. And then you can even demo some of the student created video games on here. So I would definitely check that out. I couldn't show you some of the student games today. I don't have them because they're just so large of a file. So I recommend going online and checking it out on the spring show. Alright, so speaking of games, whether you're into like League of Legends, Call of Duty, whatever you play, just know that all of those games, they come from the minds of other gamers just like yourself. And that's because who knows the game better than like a gamer? So, much like animation, you need a concept artist. You're set in just the tone of the game. This is one of my favorite projects, kind of based off Minecraft, but every game designer does this. And the purpose of it is to produce unique textures. That's to make sure that your gold sword looks like a gold sword, not like cheese or something. So it's repetition till you get that down. Another career within game development is a level designer. Like you just need somebody to think out the space. How big is the map gonna be? What's the square footage? How does the character even walk through the door? Those are the things that you have to consider as a level designer. And then you need somebody who's gonna create the rules of the game. You have what is called a technical artist, so this is what you would be hired as, and this is kind of like a bridge between artists and programmers here, so it's like a combination. You're going to have skills in sculpting, in art, in design, but then you have to have more technical skills like rigging and programming. I talked about rigging earlier in animation, that's where you're going to put the sensors all over like the vehicles and the characters. Everybody writes a little bit of code in game development, just be aware of that. It's just how much do you want to write code. We do have one science-based degree that is game programming. And as the game programmer, you are creating the tools like game engines, like Unity and Unreal, and those are two of the game engines that they use at the university. But that's what game programmers are doing. They're creating that. We have esports. It is a growing club at our university. They do play against other colleges across the United States. They're like ranked top 10. And then we do have NCAA athletics as well. We're the only art school that actually has sports. So if you're an artist and an athlete, like this really could be a good fit. Let me back it up so you can actually see all those sports. If you want to get recruited, like reach out to the coaches. Introduce yourself, just blow them up via email. Let them know you want to be on their radar. Okay, I know we have about 5 minutes. I'm going to wrap this up real quick. We have a few scholarships. It's emerging artists because you don't need a portfolio to get into our university, which is really unique. If you have 4 of your favorite pieces of work, anything, you can get some scholarship that way. And then our free classes. So let's show you those real quick before we finish off here. These classes are completely free for you, except you're going to pay for your art supplies, so just keep that in mind. Only responsible for your art supplies. So you've got drawing and painting. And you don't have to have any prior experience either, so that's what's really cool. You can try something new. Comic book illustration, you've got like writing for comic books. Digital design, if you want to try architecture or interior design. Animation and gaming, a lot of 3D modeling classes, and there's actually some on here that I did not put. So if you want to take one of these classes, the first step would be to fill out the little form that I left on the table, or scan my QR code and fill it out that way. Because I will just let you know how to get started with the classes. Like I'll send you an email so you can check it all out. And then we do have like film and writing as well. So again, there's my QR code if you want to scan it. I did bring some brochures, so feel free to take those bigger packets on the table. But if you want like very specific ones like game development or fashion, fill out the QR code and make sure you put your address. That way I can get some brochures sent to you. Alright, and how you get into university. This is really unique, and if you want to tune in for this one, you graduate high school. That's the requirement. We don't require a portfolio, a GPA requirement, or no test scores. So that's pretty unique, and we're always accepting applications as well, so just keep that in mind. Alright, so here's my contact information. Go ahead, take a picture of it. If you have any questions, email me anytime. That's really cool. And then the best way to contact me is email. And then that's the QR code. So is there any questions? Like I'm here for a little bit, so I'm gonna answer any questions and then walk around if you have any, just stop me. But I appreciate y'all for listening and letting me borrow your lunch. So much appreciated. Is there any questions that you guys have right now? Anybody? Alright, like I said, I'm gonna walk around. You guys feel free to stop me.